My Gavan and Melonin, and well met indeed. I'm Arachia Galajerathan, and welcome to another Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition video. Today, again, diplomacy, because it's pretty much all we play, because it's the easiest way to balance unbalanced players. And today we're playing on a map, as you can see, which covers the Balkans, Greece, and Turkey, with a take on that sort of area. Anyway, there are again 8 people playing, and I have started the recording a little bit further ahead in time, as you can tell. With various things already going on. So to cycle through, we've got Brasidas here, who's a hot favourite to win this game. He's in blue, he's settled in Turkey, right next to Mr. Coconuts, who is a little bit of an anomaly, an outsider if you will, and uncertain how he will perform. You will see that already, at about 11 minutes in, but remember the timings are, that's not 11 minutes of real life, but 11 minutes of game time. Mr. Coconuts is already besieging Brasidas with militia in the Dark Age, which is quite interesting. Away to the north here, Andrew has basically all of the European side of Turkey to himself, curling all the way up through into, Bulgaria up here and then beyond. And that's where his actual town centre is, but he built some economy down here on the tip, here in Constantinople, in fact. Before moving on. Further to his north is Superginge, in the red there, as you can see, right up in the top corner, and then sandwiching in Superginge is Malekith. Malekith, Andrew, and Brasidas are the favourites in this game, so light blue, yellow, and dark blue. But Brasidas, of course, already up against it. If we change over to the rest of the world, then Eärendil has taken up in Greece, and his town centre in the centre there. He's in the purple. Further to his north, the Byzantines Starfleet Command playing in green, and he's obviously sandwiched Eärendil into that little trap. I have dropped some houses and even left a villager and a dock there, but I am the only person who is built far, far away from the coast. I'm over there in the corner, and I'm playing as the Britons. Eärendil was also Byzantines, just for your noting. Brasidas is the Malay, so he'll be heavily focusing on, well, potentially infantry and trying to get his fishing going. Brasidas was the first to arrive in the feudal age. Mr. Coconuts is Japanese, but his early insistence on militia rushing has, of course, put him back a little economically. And you can see him dropping down in terms of economy. He's down there. But actually, he's pretty much the same as Brasidas, so that's a lie. Andrew is the Indians, as you may already have seen. Malekith is the Saracens. And finally, Superginge is playing as the Huns. Let's speed it up a little and return to Turkey, where most of the action takes place in the early part of this game, with 2 of them sandwiched right on top of each other here in Turkey. Remember, these icons on the side will show you what each player is currently doing, what they're researching, recruiting, and which age they're going to, or which age they are currently in. It also does give you their colours. Down here at the moment, we'll keep it mostly on the score, but you can see the total score, but don't worry too much about that. It breaks it then down into military, economy, and tech. And also society, of course. But society is mostly relics and things like that. It plays a little part in these bigger games. Brasidas the only person at the moment with any real military score, and whereas Mr. Coconuts' militia have given him at least a score of 15. Most people now going up to the feudal age and ticking through. Now again, this is diplomacy, so that everyone can only ever have one ally is the rule that we use at the moment. So why Brasidas and Coconuts aren't looking to ally this early on is beyond me. This is also a Regicide game, which is why there's a keep over here, with a king in it, and or a watchtower with 2 walls next to it so that his king won't accidentally die. Brasidas now starting to take action against the little horde of infantry that was brought before him, with 1 elephant taking 3 units down and injuring many, many more. But almost all the action does happen down here. In the north, where there are 3 sandwiched together, Andrew and Malekith become allies. And they squeeze Ginge slowly further and further up into that corner. In the south, Starfleet Command, you may have noticed, asked everyone if they would be his ally early on, and instead Eärendil allied with me. So the grey and purple are in an alliance, yellow and teal, and then over here it's just all-out war in Turkey. Brasidas now really starting... Oh, sorry, I've zoomed in. Really starting to rev up his economy. You will note that you get all of the messages this time, rather than just... It doesn't matter who we select to view, we get everyone's message come through. So I think that's quite interesting. It's key that you remember that this is a diplomacy regicide. So a king is present. And at the moment, Andrew's king is in his town centre, so is Malekith, so is Superginge's, so is mine, likely so is Eärendil's. Brasidas, I think, is the only person who doesn't have them in a town centre. But we'll swap back over to here, where Brasidas is starting now to really actually get the ball rolling. He's in the castle age, whereas Coconuts is in the feudal. He's sending spearmen out now against Brasidas's crossbowmen, which is never going to work very well. He's got a, is it called an onager yet? No, mangonel, sorry. There's a mangonel there as well, and Brasidas is even utilising his archers to the best of his ability by moving them around to take less damage, and the army that Coconut sends is rapidly depleted and defeated. Coconut's now really up against it as Brasidas kicks into full flow. Now, I would say that Brasidas and Malekith are the two hot favourites, and I couldn't tell you how close they are in terms of who should likely win. Andrew is hot on their heels, and also, I mean, to be honest, they often, in the pro scene, don't they? They often play like the best of 21 games or something like that. And if Malekith, Andrew, and Brasidas all fought against each other one-on-ones and did 20-odd games, I should imagine there would only be 1 or 2 games in it. They're all very, very similar in terms of their ability. And historically, I would have said Brasidas probably would clinch it, which may lose me some friends in saying that, but at the moment, with a long break out of Age of Empires, it remains to be seen at the moment who would take the cake. But you can see, in terms of the score at the moment, Brasidas leading Malekith and Andrew. And Coconuts resigns at the 24th minute mark. His early rush into attacking Brass. Why they didn't just ally is absolutely beyond me. If we just momentarily turn the fog of war and change back to Brasidas, all he knows at the moment is Coconuts has him squeezed in on that northern side. He can see the edge and the southern tip of the map, but he doesn't know anything else. So allying with Coconuts, at least for now, personally, I would have said, would have been a better move. Because then they can explore this, where they've landed with impunity. Now you have to remember that none of us have played this map before, so no one actually knew what the map looked like when we went in. But everyone had a sort of rough idea. We knew the name of the map. I called it Balkans e Marmara. And so people knew roughly where we were going, but just not the actual layout. But it's safe to suggest Brasidas knew he was going to Turkey, is what I'm taking away from that. But now, of course, Andrew and Malekith are left up in the north here to play it out as they wish, as more of us now start joining them in the Castle Age. Heading over to look at my wonderful British Empire. I've got one sole solitary dock trading there in the sea. Aegean, isn't it, that one? My main town centre there, branching out with a market and a nice little housing district around it to get it going. There's some farming going on there, and I'm starting to build a wall, because in these large games, I like to build walls, because people are so very fond of raiding. And whilst a wall will not stand up to a full-scale assault, of course, it will at least save you a little bit if people don't fight you just yet. So if people take a little bit of time to find you, then a wall will at least gives you some protection early doors. It is massively a noob tactic, but also, I don't know, I just like to play the game, and I like building walls. I think it looks nice. So I build walls. We all play games for different reasons, and take away from your games what you will, and allow me to take away from mine what I will. But Brasidas has now discovered the entirety of Turkey. He's come across Andrew's buildings. He's popping down a gate so that no one can get through on that northern side. And he knows he's got Turkey to himself because, of course, Coconuts has resigned. Oh, sorry, I should remove the number 8. Super Ginge, I think, entered into some sort of neutrality pact with these two on the south of him. And for a while, they just let him build up and continue on his own. As you can see, score-wise now, Andrew has eclipsed Brasidas with Malekith closing in. Super Ginge, by comparison, is a full 2,000 points away. But he's building military in the north there, and getting a castle up in a really, really weird position. I'm not sure why he's putting it right up against the wall, but there we are. We, in the south as well, trade has begun between the Byzantines and the Britons, and the other Byzantines are at least allowing it to pass through their land unscathed. As the Byzantines in the south, just he's getting a lot of defences up Earendil. He's got some cataphracts out. I am building a great wall, which is not something the British are particularly known for. But I thought, why the hell not? Let's put 2 lines in, because it always looks nicer when there's 2 banks. I've got more town centres, obviously, now that I'm in the Castle Age. There's town centres there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think I popped one over there as well. Yes, and I put some mills in the back there. And dropping another mill complex on the edge. Many people now in the Imperial Age with only me, Super Ginge and Starfleet to get there. And we aren't going up at the moment, other than Starfleet is on his way to Imperial. Super Ginge, I doubt he is, but neither am I at the moment. Going mostly just trying to boom out as much as I can. Expand, expand, expand. I've nowhere near the farms of these people. I should have more farms is the message I'm taking away from this. But I think we're all reminded of just how good this game looks nowadays. When you zoom in, it's some of its blemishes do show up. Like there's a sort of constant twinkling effect on the villagers. You'll note as their pixels all sort of move around and change. But it's just cool that you can zoom in, to be honest. Brasidas has now made his landing on the western shores, and he has attacked Andrew, who is, as I say, Indians. Indians have a heavy camel focus. Or rather, heavy, camel focus. No, that doesn't make sense either. They get heavy camels. They even get imperial camels. But they have a camel focus as a nation. They also get good gunpowder. Byzantines, of course, are usually classed as a defensive nation because their buildings hold more hit points than almost anything else. Their unique unit, the Cataphract, is a heavy cavalry unit that can hold up against infantry well. The British, of course, are an archer nation through and through, with the longbowmen, which you shall see many of as the game gets underway. I'm trying to claim as much economically as I can, but if we just, for a moment, pop it down to normal speed and just flick through and see what everyone can actually see, you'll note that I can only see Eärendil and Starfleet Command, because I think I became neutral with Starfleet, but I have no idea where the others actually are, other than I know that they're up here somewhere. Eärendil is in the same boat as me. He has almost exactly the same line of sight that I do. Brasidas only knows of the people that he's attacked on the mainland, and he's got some line of sight for Eärendil over in Greece, so he's got a little bit of water sight there. Swapping over to Malekith, again, he has no idea where I am or Starfleet is, but he knows Eärendil's got a few buildings on the southern coast. Super Ginger's obviously to his north, but he can't see all of Super Ginger's base, and he knows, of course, that Brasidas has landed, because he is allied to Andrew. Super Ginge knows very, very little, but has actually found me, one of the few people that has. He's got a few Tarkans running around, because he's playing as the Huns. Starfleet Command, in the very bizarre twist, can only see his own base and has no sight on anyone else except me encroaching in here. So this would give Starfleet the impression that I'm right next to him, when in truth I'm actually miles away, which is something I mentioned to him verbally in the game. Coco is obviously dead, sorry. And finally, Andrew, who... There we are. I thought that would wigged out. Andrew can see just what Malekith can see and nothing more. But let's swap back to Gaia so we don't get all of the training noises. And keep going through. We can speed it up again as Malekith now brings forces to the south to link up with the camels of the Indians. They are going to press into Malay land and try and wrest it from Brasidas' hands. Brasidas does have all of Turkey to himself. He's got troops training in all of these barracks. We've got archers predominantly he's going for at the moment. Because archers are a good counter to the Mamelukes. Mamelukes, of course, being a ranged melee unit. But the war kicks off with a vengeance, and Brasidas retreats away from the rams who are being brought in to counter his archers. Halberdiers rush forth from each and every barracks to counter the camels that are almost certainly coming through. And Andrew starts turning his trebs on the archers themselves. It is not looking too promising for Brasidas in this engagement. The sheer size of the force that are attacking him will surely have an impact here. But we're watching the three of the finest players, because as this war is going ahead, I feel like I'm Britain in the year 0 AD, for example. As the Romans are slowly expanding throughout the world, we have absolutely no idea what is going on all these miles away from us as we carefully sit and farm our way to glory. Eärendil in the same position as me. We have kept out of this northern war altogether. But the camels and the Mamelukes and the rams break into the heartland of Brasidas' western side. The trebuchets, interestingly, have gone round the trees for some reason. Not sure what Andrew's ultimate goal there was. Brass certainly feeling the heat as these armies take off everything that he built in western Turkey. And his army even pulls back to the edge of his base. Now, he has got military production in his base, but economically speaking, Malekith and Andrew are light years ahead. if we just take a look, Andrew's economy is 8,000, Malekith is 7,000, and Brass is 4,000, giving you an idea of how behind Brass's force is, or economically is. And now the fate really sealed as these archers show that they just simply cannot deal with a ram and that few archers. And the Mamelukes finally come in. I've now made it to the Imperial Age, but I think that means everyone who is still alive except Ginge is now in the Imperial Age, as the camels now flood into mainland Turkey. Brassadas's options are limited. You'll note at the moment Brassadas isn't training anything in response. If we slow it down just a moment and see, Brassadas is... He's got plenty of economy, though. He's got plenty of options available to him. Castle goes up in the south, and he resigns. Quite understandably, he is absolutely tag-teamed by the two before him. So, the southern theatre is then taken out. Coconuts and Brass are gone, which means that war will come to the north soon. My sort of military staging area with a couple more town centres is up, and longbowmen are getting pumped out. In the south, Eärendil has some cataphracts and trebs, and he's starting to ramp up military as well. Eärendil and I did, at one moment as well, discuss the fact that we were grateful for Starfleet allowing... Oh, there you go, he's sending the message right there. Starfleet seems a nice guy, but he is in the way, so... Undecided face. To which I agreed. But then my trade is getting killed off by the damned Indians, and castles are going up to protect and govern the walls, as Andrew now discovers my walls. Longbowmen squeezing in from the north there, crossing the river. I'm afraid my knowledge of the Balkans is not very good, and I couldn't tell you what river that is. Cutting through... Like, we're into sort of Albania up here, aren't we? So I don't know what river that is, I'm afraid. Much of my base is up on this very, very northern spit between these two rivers. But now the yellow and teal horde comes to the green and purples, because of course we're the only place to go. Super Ginge at the moment still allowed to live in the northern corner of Malekith and Andrew's base, and he's just trading basically and taking their resources, which they won't like too much. But Starfleet Command comes right up against it, as he now bears the brunt of this assault. You'll note that Starfleet Command's military score stands at 328. And unfortunately, it's not enough to counter this storm that comes before him. The camel army that descends upon the Byzantine forward post. And down the buildings go. I mean, they look glorious when they fall, but still, it's not something you often want to see. But down indeed they all go, as the trade still tries to find its way through. But the camels having absolutely none of it. Our trade is getting ransacked. And so, in anticipation, Eärendil and I switch to the water for our trade. The gold must flow. And Eärendil sends out the cataphracts to counter. And in a very poor matchup, the cataphracts are up against camels, who compare rather well against them, unfortunately. Mamelukes a good answer to cataphracts as well with their melee damage. And Starfleet Command resigns as well. At first there were 8, and now there are 5. As Teal, Andrew and Malekith totally wipe Starfleet out. But he resigned before his king was killed, and that's key. The kings, of course, for most of us, still just in town centres or places like that. Just kept away and not given too much thought. I like Regicide because people often don't think about the king, and then it might die in a lucky gambit, a lucky raid or something like that. But there we are, Starfleet down. The camels continue on their merry way. They're now pressing in, taking out some of my villagers of all things. Eärendil sends some villagers into the safety, behind the safety of the walls. But now the British can answer. And our trebuchets, along with some trade, apparently, and as many longbowmen as we can train with our 300 population limit, we head south to try and counter. But my thinking is, if Eärendil can just sort of hold Aleketh and Mandrew? Let's call them Aleketh and Mandrew. If they can hold Aleketh and Mandrew in place in the south here, then I might be able to break in and do any kind of damage in the north. So I rather abandon Eärendil to his fate. And his base takes a considerable hit. The army of cataphracts that he has does do some damage, because they are, at the end of the day, elite cataphracts, and they're a damn fine unit. And camels, whilst camels trade well with cataphracts, cataphracts still do a lot of damage. And obviously they're countered by camels, but they will take some losses in return. But of course the camels will win out in that fight. Whilst Malekith finishes off most of Earendil's buildings. Earendil's king back here in his town centre. But it's now that my army finally makes its way into the base in the north, where Super Ginge has also managed to send some units out there. Super Ginge sends some Tarkans in against our longbowmen, but there's not enough. And our army raids. And then, unfortunately, or rather, as hoped and anticipated, my attack has pulled Andrew back. He's brought his entire army back to counter my assault. Which, whilst of course it means my assault will lose, and does die off, as you slowly see, every loss is a loss, it gives Eärendil some breathing room. And Eärendil does not lose everything. He's able to hold on to the main Isle of Greece itself, as my army fights on in the north. Remember, my trebuchets do have War Wolf, which means they do splash damage, and so a well-placed trebuchet shot can actually take out a large number of units. But it requires a level of micro that I don't often put into these kind of games. I'm a casual. I'm a filthy, dirty, horrible casual, I'm afraid. But Andrew now focusing entirely on my assault and completely ignoring Eärendil. The two have now seen where the threat lies. Eärendil rather sneakily putting ships in to cover his advance. As the camels prepare behind us, the longbowmen fan out, ready to kill what they can, and the trebuchets move in on castles and can attack whatever they can attack. You'll note that Malekith actually doesn't have very much, and our army, unbeknownst to me, because of course I can't see beyond what my longbowmen can currently see, we're actually right in Malekith's base at the moment. He doesn't really have a secondary, unless you count the few military buildings down here. But then it all kicks off. Finally the assault comes, Mamelukes rushing in from the eastern side, and the camels swarming, and down go the longbowmen. Just as some reinforcements arrive, and more longbow shots fly into the enemy there. More longbowmen come up. The Mamelukes and camels are all on the same side now, taking the same types of damage as our longbowmen can all fire into our enemy. You'll note there's a little bit of lag as these games, as the servers sort of just get used to being active and being used, I suppose. Eärendil clinging on and fighting on as the trade in the Aegean keeps flowing. And of course my base at the moment has yet to actually be troubled and is protected by the Great Wall and protected by castles where I can get them, and our king is still safely ensconced in our town centre far at the back there. More longbowmen come in, but our attack has ended. However, it has had its desired effect, and Eärendil has managed to push out and reclaim at least some of his land, and he's rebuilding and recouping. But you'll note Andrew has now built a forward base right up against me there. I've got a few troops that were training from my southern side, which are now pressing into the castles in the centre. Longbowmen training there, and longbowmen training there. We've also got some cavaliers. Excellent counter to camels, as I'm sure you're all very well aware. The cavaliers charge out into the camels there. And die, is what they do. They die. It was always going to be that way for them, but there we are. And away go the camels. Because if we just spend a brief moment to cycle through, I've got a fair amount of gold, a shed load of food, an absolute mountain of wood. Eärendil, reasonable proportions of each as well. He's got more gold than me, than less food and wood though. Brastas of course is defeated. I don't know why I'm looking at him. Malekith has a mountain of wood as well, a lot amount of food and a similar amount of gold as me. And they finally turned on Ginge. They can no longer risk having him in the back. And it's because Super Ginge attacked them. I don't know if the message popped up actually. But, oh no, because he asked me on Steam. Super Ginge suggested that he was going to attack, and would it be a good idea if he did? And I said, yes, please, do attack. And so he did, and they instantly wiped him out. Starfleet is also dead, and if we finally, with Andrew, has got a lot of food, a lot of wood, and a lot of gold as well. So we are all doing well in terms of resources. And Super Ginge, did he resign or was he defeated? He was defeated. His king is killed. There, in fact, is the dying remains of his king, slowly soaking into the ground as it absorbs his life energy. And the north is left an abandoned hulk. Nothing. A shade of its former self. But my army was able to hold this sort of northern recruitment staging area. More cavaliers are coming out. Armies in the centre there. We've moved out to the river crossing again, and we're attacking that castle. Eärendil has forced his way out onto this castle and at the minute is standing still doing nothing. But he has pushed out and Andrew and Malekith are beset. But my longbowmen, unfortunately, aren't really a good enough match against these Mamelukes, and they go down poorly. We trade very poorly against the Mamelukes, in truth, which is a shame, really. And I should probably go for arbalists rather than longbowmen, to be honest, but re-speccing my entire base just takes time and effort. So we fight on, throwing more and more longbowmen. I have so much available gold. There's still gold piles there that I haven't used. That one's just being used up now. There's gold there behind my castle line that I can use. There's gold there that I can use. And let's not forget that the constant trade flows between me and Eärendil. And the ships now automatically choose the best dock, which for me at the moment is that one just there. And so my ships are returning with... We can't tell because I'm not me. There we are. The ships are returning with 70 gold a pop. And more trade ships are being trained. You can see I've got 14 on the way at the moment with with 60 longbowmen currently queued. Whether or not we'll get that many out, we shall see. But I've got castles all over the place, so we'll be able to get them in time. I'm really looking forward to the mods coming out for DE, because I don't like this castle. It's one of my least favourite models. I think it looks really bad. The Byzantine one, I think, looks really good. Or they're Italian now, aren't they, basically? And I also thoroughly enjoy the Indian, and specifically that one. It used to always be my favourite. I like that castle a lot. But I just don't like the Western Europe one. I think it just looks boring in comparison. And it looks like it's the wrong sort of scale. I've always felt like it looks like it's the wrong scale. I don't know. Personally, anyway. But there we are. We are under attack. The Mamelukes flood in. There's a gap, unfortunately, but the longbowmen help take that out. And we've taken all the gold, so they can kill us. It doesn't matter. Our army in the north is allowed to survive. Eärendil now gets some buildings up in my base as well. You can see he's moved a lot of his economy into my area because we're protected behind the wall. I also have ensured the safety of my king with a cheeky little system I like to call... Which cup is it under? And the king is in one of those towers, but which one, the enemy will never know, and they have to destroy all four, which might buy me a little bit of time. I'm not going to tell you which one the king is, because then you'll be able to guess in future as well. So he's just in one of those. I like to play little mind games like that, however insignificant they are. Let's be honest, if the enemy is attacking me here, I've probably lost the game, but it's always nice to go out with a last laugh, isn't it? The attacks in the centre cease, but Malekith then finally pushes into the economy that we have up there, but he retreats as soon as he sees the castle. The Mamelukes are no match for 3 lined up castles, and my longbowmen start to press out back in the south as Malekith has changed his focus. Andrew then rushes back into the fight and now trying to split me and Eärendil in twain. But Eärendil's army has mustered and the Byzantines return with a vengeance. And the fight continues to swing back and forth and back and forth. And just to really annoy they're not pro people, but these people that play it all the time that think walls are a massive noob tactic, I put up more walls because there's nothing these people hate more than unexpected things. And so when someone like Malekith and Andrew play against each other, neither of them will ever build walls. So neither of them will ever prepare or plan to have to build walls. So when they come up against walls, it does rather actually give you a brief window where they have to respec or think about how they're going to take the walls down. And whilst obviously at the moment the trebuchets are dealing with it, the rebuilding of the wall is just another... It's all about the mental mind games. You've got to make them realise you're willing to just continually build walls to push them away. And I'm happy with the walling. Look at those camels surviving that many longbowmen. It's ridiculous. But now we're focusing on our strengths as we should. The Byzantines are now focusing on the trash, sending out the halberdiers, sending out the skirmishers, and I'm providing the archers, giving us a nice combination to move forwards with. I am now actually the highest score by considerable margin, thanks to the large economic area I was able to hold on to. Obviously, economy being the reason I'm being pushed into the top spot. My military score is considerably behind Malekith, for example. But my economy is greater than his because he was sandwiched up in this corner. The northern side now is very much not used and is taken out of the game and sort of sits idle as the centre becomes the point that we have to push. As the halberdiers rush out and to try and counter any of the camels. Malekith himself now going for heavy camel riders as they are quicker, faster. They are trained faster than Mamelukes. We've got some trebuchets coming out now as well to drop things like the castles, which will cause problems in the later stages. So down the castles go. I'm getting barracks up myself. It's time to throw halberdiers at it as well. I need something to cover the longbowmen so that they can get the kills while something else does the dying. And behind all of that, of course, the trebuchets to slowly chip away at the military installations that have been set up. Earendil's base is constantly thrown backwards and forwards from destruction to rebuilding, back to destruction. You'll note that the sneaky bugger has even headed over to Turkey and in secret has built a secondary base there. And Andrew, though, has discovered it and will make plans, I'm sure, shortly. But it gives Eärendil an opportunity to take some of the unused goods from that area. Our fight in the middle has gone well. Many of the stables have gone down. We've cleared the castles and our army presses forward, ever pushing toward victory. Malekith, in a bit of a stunned daze at the moment, pulls away from Eärendil's base once again as Eärendil holds on and holds on and holds on. Our army pressing deep into the centre there. We've got my halberdiers and Eärendil supporting halberdiers. Mamelukes coming through, though, to really ruin everyone's fun. The trade continues to flow through the sea. You'll note the trade between Andrew and Malekith is, at the moment, non-existent. They are still purely relying on natural gold reserves, which is they can do at the moment because there's so much gold on this map. But they haven't bothered going into trade, which does mean they've got a little bit of a numerical advantage. You'll see Malekith has there constructed a wall to try and stop the forces coming in on that northern side, so walls can be helpful. But our army is overcome again with the arrival of the Indians. When the two armies are together, they can defeat mine and Eärendil's small offering. But when they are divided... Oh, I built a wonder as well because I wanted to see what it looked like. So if you're interested, that is the Britain's wonder, or Western European wonder. Oh, actually, are the wonders unique per culture? I think they might be. But that is the British wonder, which looking at it, it doesn't instantly tell me what that is, to be honest. I would like to say maybe Westminster Abbey, but I'm not entirely sure. But there's my trebuchets showing their superiority. They are pinpoint accurate British trebuchets, and they have splash damage. So if you can hit your target, or if your target doesn't move, then you'll do a lot of damage. But the army goes down, but again, Eärendil is then saved and kept in the game. So he can keep throwing trash at it to help us win this damnable war. Finally, his offering in Turkey is raided, taking Andrew's attention away as well. Eärendil and Andrew then battle it out over here in Turkey for a while. But something needs to be done. More troops are thrown to the front. More and more brave sons of Britain give their lives. But then it hits me. I am an absolutely wonderful colour for sneaking behind enemy lines. And I send in some villagers to just try and get an idea of where our enemy has gone. Unfortunately, we get a little bit too close to Malekith, who instantly recognises the attack, but two villagers make it through. Two subtle little villagers, two specks of uninteresting grey, make their way to the back of Malekith's base, where you'll remember from earlier, no one has any sight range of. And my two humble little villagers begin plans to win this damnable war. As Malekith then puts up a wall to make sure no one can get through, but the damage is already done. And now, in order to try and really keep their attention on the south, I've let Eärendil know of the fact that I've got troops in the back of their base, and if we can now really keep up the pressure on the southern front, then perhaps something can happen in the north. And that is our plan. My villagers, really, in the hope of building up as fast as possible, I drop a town centre so that we can throw even more villagers into it, and I'm going with archery ranges and arbalests. Oh, I think they're called arbalesters now. I'm sure they were called arbalests in HD, but now they're definitely called arbalesters. I don't think there is one available to click on at the moment, but I'll show you in a minute. They've added an ER, I'm sure they have. But just to confirm, if we swap to the Fog of War and change to see what Malekith can see, he can't see my base to the north. And all he would be able to see if he looked with his... if he actually scanned over this area, he would see my outpost. Otherwise, from the map, as you can tell, it's incredibly difficult to see that I've got that outpost up in the corner. Andrew can obviously see the same things. There we are. Arbalester. See, told you, they've definitely added an ER. Well, I've got some castles being dropped. We've got our arbalests coming out. We're going to hit them where it hurts. As our main army now actually starts to get some ground in the south. We start to press back and push in to their lands. Malekith at the moment doesn't actually have a military. I don't know what has happened to it, or if we've just defeated it and we are missing the dead bodies. But Malekith has actually lost his military at the moment, whilst Andrew is busy on the eastern front. Eärendil absolutely showing Malekith trying to get me to change up, but I can't change up now because my plans are in motion. And attacking someone when they don't know you're there is far more fun than backstabbing someone. So I ignore Malekith's request, whilst Andrew is entirely busy in the east, and so we have only got Malekith to contend with. Which means that the time is running out for them both anyway, notwithstanding the attack they don't even know is about to come in the north. Eärendil has, of course, requested some gold. At the moment, I didn't even see these messages because I was so intent on making sure this army got through. I had no idea that I was even being messaged. But Malekith's protestations and requests are unfortunately too late as the army arrives in the eco at the back of Malekith and Andrew's base. The Arbalists getting into the town centre so that they can take down as many villagers as possible. Trebuchets moving in to get that castle, and the other Arbalists hitting Andrew on the side. And it is very much not going their way now. Malekith sends skirmishers back to counter, and his king goes out on a merry jaunt to a... Unbeknownst to Malekith, he sends his king into the front line, and down he goes. His king went to the rally point of the castle and died, willingly walked to its own suicide. That's funny, isn't it? And in a Regicide game, when the king dies, everything that person controls dies with him, which is another reason I really like Regicide. I don't know if that's a trigger on this game, actually, or if that's all Regicide. I think that's just a trigger in this game mode, actually. But I think it's really cool and very, very handy. So, Malekith gone, his fate pretty much sealed. The alliance of Galu and Eärendil now has a small Indian force in the north to crush. And I'm not entirely sure how that just happened, but again, I was really hoping we'd actually catch it, but I didn't know where the king was. Ah, the king was over here, and Eärendil killed him there. Would be my guess, I believe. Because the king certainly wasn't up here, because we were attacking the town centre up here, and it was the town centre had long been destroyed. But in any event, Andrew also he didn't kill his king willingly. It just, not really knowing where his king was, again led to his downfall. And Eärendil and I take the victory, with only really some damage to my far eastern edge. The core heartland of my economic empire, if you will, was never really troubled. Mostly because of the wall. Because you saw how many cavalry forces they have and how much of an advantage they had for most of the game. If the wall had not stood, they would have raided me, and I think it would have been a very different outcome. But in the end, Eärendil and I took the victory, and I took the highest score in economy, technology, society, and total score. Which is, of course, why this one's gone up, because it makes me look amazing. Although it doesn't. Anyone watching this will see the many flaws in my... I was basically banging my head against a door until it opened, and it ended up working in my favour. But there's all of our scores, as you can see. Malekith killing the most, Andrew close second, and then me a long way behind in third. Losing the most was, rather unfortunately, me, with Eärendil close behind, with only 10 less. But Malekith having an excellent kill-to-death ratio there. Andrew's not quite as good, and that's purely because Malekith's army was mostly ranged. The largest army was held by Eärendil, with again me only a few points behind. Most wood, most stone, most gold, and highest trade, all by myself. By comparison, at the end there, when I was saying that they were just using the gold stones, you'll note Andrew really was using the gold for all it was worth, having almost as much gold as me in terms of actual collection. But then, of course, I had 50,000 gold profit on top of that. And that is why I think at the end there, you saw Malekith and Andrew kind of running out of ideas and their armies just dissipating because Earendil and I had gold to spare and they ran out of gold. But there's the heat map. Earendil for a long time having a large chunk. You'll note Malekith has a large economy for a very long time and his military only ever claims about half of that. Whereas at the end there, I think Earendil and I started killing off villagers to ensure our army size could stay sizable. But that concludes this one. I do hope you've enjoyed watching this. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. And if you would like to play some of these more casual games with us, please, please, please join the Order of the Swan, which is linked in the video. It's a Discord channel linked in every video on the channel. Make sure that you ask to get the AOE tag. There's an Age of Empires channel. You can ask to get the tag in there. And then make sure that you keep notifications for that channel on. And then you will get a message when we are asking people to play. And then you'll be around and you'll know when we play. But for now, and until we speak again, Navarna den Pedamad Melonin, and farewell.